Story 1. Solar and wind energy face significant challenges. Incentives for solar and wind projects were supposed to last until 2030. Now, there is only 1 year to obtain permits, and projects must be completed by the end of 2027. According to my supervisor, residential solar is essentially being eliminated. He said commercial solar would be fine since it was expected to last until 2030 and align with the new election cycle, but that is no longer the case. Story 2. One relatively minor but unusual aspect of the bill is that it negatively impacts professional gamblers, including professional poker players. This illustrates how much unexpected lobbying influence is inserted into legislation at the last minute without debate or public discussion. Story 3. Hope you do not need hospital services. The situation is about to get serious. Hospitals are already dangerously understaffed. It will get worse, and some will end up shutting down completely. Story 4. Make sure Make America Great Again does not forget about the big beautiful bill so they can place blame on others. Remember, this is breaking news, and they named it the big beautiful bill. I hope they are not going to act stupid and pretend they do not remember. Story 5. I have cerebral palsy as a pre-existing condition because I stopped breathing a few hours after birth. I receive my health care through Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. I am afraid that I will die. It feels like eugenics against the poor and disabled. Story 6. I work at a children's hospital and treat many disabled kids. About 70% of our patients are on Medicaid. It is uncertain how many of them will lose their insurance, stop attending appointments, miss milestones, regress in their abilities, and suffer for years before this is resolved, if ever. Since there seems to be some confusion, here is a clarification. Are most kids going to lose their eligibility in a single, dramatic cut? No. Instead, the loss of coverage will be more gradual, relying on obstacles and confusion. Several groups are at risk of losing coverage, and there will be increased obstacles to accessing care. Administrative burdens will make things much more difficult for families. With reduced funding from the federal government, states will have to pick up the costs or make cuts by tightening eligibility requirements or eliminating benefits. 1 in 5 kids with Medicaid is enrolled in an optional group that is not federally required to be covered. These include children who are low income but not poor enough to qualify for Medicaid outright, some children with disabilities who do not receive supplemental security income, and some foster children. Other children, such as legal immigrants covered by the Children's Health Insurance Program, are also at risk. These groups may lose their coverage as states reduce spending. New copayment requirements will create financial burdens on families and lead to fewer visits. Hospitals and clinics will close due to lack of funding, especially in rural areas, reducing access to services. Red tape, long processing and wait times, and confusion about eligibility will cause gaps in care. When parents lose their own coverage, it affects families as well, whether due to paperwork errors or wait times. This is a long-term issue, and the consequences will be easy to blame on Democratic governors of states that expanded Medicaid and on the next federal administration. Story 7. The party of small government just passed a bill that is unfunded to the tune of $250 billion a year. Why does anyone think the grand old party is anything but predators? Story 8. I am concerned that some individuals may unfairly blame the Democratic Party, immigrants, Black people, and transgender people for potential negative outcomes resulting from this bill. Story 9. Now supporters of Make America Great Again can celebrate, while the liberals have been defeated and are losing their health insurance. Story 10. What happens now? Now, we watch the richest Americans celebrate while 17 million people start figuring out how they are going to survive without Medicaid. We watch billionaires receive more tax breaks while working families are told they just need to work harder, as if you can overcome medical bills on your own. The big, beautiful bankruptcy is a bloated, cynical, gilded middle finger to poor and working-class Americans. It slashes healthcare, eliminates food assistance, cuts climate programs, and adds nearly $3.4 trillion to the national debt. They said they could not afford student loan forgiveness or universal health care, but when it comes to lining billionaires' pockets, suddenly trillions are found. So who is to blame? This is a Republican-engineered wrecking ball, supported by Donald Trump and his congressional enablers. Every Republican who voted for this should be remembered by name. Where were the so-called moderates? Where were the defenders of democracy when this agenda was pushed through? The bill is cruel by design. It intentionally removes people from Medicaid, makes it harder to afford food, strips protections from immigrants and vulnerable communities, all to extend tax cuts for the wealthy. What happens next? Millions will lose health coverage. Some will die. Hospitals, especially rural ones, will start collapsing under the cost of unpaid care. Climate protections will be gutted. Expect hotter summers, more expensive natural disasters, and increased wealth for oil executives. States will scramble to fill the gaps. Some will fight. Others will give in. Lawsuits will be filed. Chaos will follow. And the public will be left paying the price while some media call it a victory for freedom. This is austerity disguised as patriotism. It is a masterclass in gaslighting. The bill's name makes it sound appealing, but it is harmful legislation that will hurt rural America and beyond. But let me be clear, while they may have passed this bill, we still have power. We organize. We fight state by state. We show up in 2026. And we never forget who betrayed the people, how and why. End rant. For now, Story 11. I wish rural Make America Great Again supporters all the luck in the world with their bathtub penicillin and toilet tank chemotherapy. For an actual opinion, the real scary part is immigration and customs enforcement. For context, immigration and customs enforcement now has a budget larger than Russia's entire funding for a full-scale military invasion of another country. That should horrify you in ways you cannot even fully comprehend. And all they are doing is domestic enforcement. As pointed out, technically, immigration and customs enforcement's budget is over 4 years versus the single-year funding for Russia's military. So feel free to be 1/4 as horrified as I implied you should be. Story 12. Most effects will take place by 2028. Hopefully, the Democratic Party takes control of the legislature and executive branch. Fox News and all conservative media will blame the Democratic Party for the severe deficit, block every piece of legislation, and shut down the government. Story 13. From my understanding, some things do not change until 2029, so most people will not connect this bill to the Republican Party. In the meantime, I am mostly worried about what immigration and customs enforcement will do after it deports all the brown people. Some other group will have to be vilified to maintain its purpose. Story 14. I do not know. I have a medical condition and need medication twice a day to live a somewhat normal life. My insurance is under the Affordable Care Act, and I will not be able to afford it next year with the new rules under the Build Back Better plan. I am scared. Story 15. By the time this bill starts hurting people, Make America Great Again will have moved on to some other nonsense, and Democrats will be blamed for the struggles. Story 16. I mean, everything just keeps getting worse and worse, right? Until it is so far down that path that there is no going back. It really seems like the strategy the Republican Party is making is that the next election just will not matter. If they thought it did, they would not have voted for it. I know there is a half-hearted delay for some of the healthcare cuts until after the midterm elections, but my guess is that there will be enough outrage about this bill by then, maybe the least popular legislation ever passed, that enough people outside the hardcore Make America Great Again base will be furious enough about it that people will lose their seats. The fact that they did it anyway suggests that it will not matter for other reasons. Story 17. I am Canadian, so I should probably not comment. However, I do feel sadness for the people whose lives will be in jeopardy because of this bill. My heart is truly sad, as this is a humanitarian issue, not a sovereignty or political issue. I do not want the United States of America to invade us, but I feel for the people whose lives will be changed by this bill, regardless of which country they live in. Story 18. Now I have to find out how much of my benefits are going to drop or change. From there, I will decide if I need to change anything such as where I live, how I shop for food, or any drug or coverage changes with my doctors. If anything is to be believed, and I do not believe it until it happens as a full-blooded multi-generational American, I should not even be worrying. But as a disabled man in his 60s collecting his Social Security insurance, relying on Medicare, supplemental Medicaid, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and its related programs, it would be insane not to be worried right now. I feel sane, therefore worried. Story 19. Tens of thousands of people will die from treatable medical conditions. Rural communities will unravel at an accelerated rate. Income inequality will reach South Korean levels or worse. And a group of sociopaths with investments will tell people literally dying that everything is fine because they want these people to die and believe billionaires work a billion times harder. Meritocracy, bro. Homelessness, drug addiction, and associated crime are about to skyrocket, but somehow it will be blamed on Democratic politicians in cities. Homelessness will be further criminalized as most housing and drug treatment programs are defunded to funnel money to police and prisons. This is what the vast majority of self-identified conservatives want, and it is fairly popular with moderates and Democrats too because America hates poor people, and many Americans in poverty are in extreme denial about it, so they have no solidarity with people they are one bad turn away from becoming. There will be no self-reflection about how income inequality and the crime and punishment mindset have ravaged society because bootlicking and sadism are fundamentally American values far more than liberty and free speech. Story 20. Poor people begin their charitable efforts by making themselves poorer so that the rich can become richer. Sorry, poor folks. There is no room for you in Donald Trump's America. Story 21. Right this second? Not much. There will be instant effects felt with the higher budgets for immigration and customs enforcement, for example, but many provisions are either continuations of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from his first term or things that do not actually kick in until after the midterm elections. And make no mistake, that is entirely intentional. No hospital or Medicaid patient is likely to be harmed by this now. It will be in a couple of years, and history dictates that Democrats will take the House back. So when rural hospitals in conservative states start shutting down, Fox News will be 24/7. Why did Democrats destroy your health care? Republicans know they are not going to tangibly face consequences for their actions. They almost never do because they get kicked out of office, spend 2 to 4 years lying through their teeth and through their impeccably funded propaganda network, and voters inexplicably put them back in charge. Think of all the horrible things the Republicans have done since Donald Trump took office. Now realize how many things you forgot about. Now realize further that this was literally only just over 5 months ago. The next time Congress could change hands is 19 months from now. Let me say that again. It is 19 months until the next time anyone with actual authority and power could possibly prevent things from getting worse. No bill passed by a Democrat-led House except continuing resolutions and debt limit increases is getting signed by Trump. So the best they can do is stonewall. And 24 more months before anyone can start to undo it, assuming they get a Democrat back in the big chair and they eliminate the filibuster. That is 43 more months of destruction we have ahead of us. What is even going to be left of America by then? A number of people are already reporting closures at their local hospitals and doctors' offices. Happy Independence Day, everyone. You have just been liberated from your health care. Many people are asking, what do we do? The short answer is you cannot stop this right now. No amount of protests will withdraw the funds from immigration and customs enforcement. No amount of calling your representatives or senators did anything this time. Civil activism does not achieve what elections do. What you can and should do is make sure Democrats are elected in 2026 and 2028. Yes, my party is often ineffective and weak. Yes, we get obsessed over social issues, and we alienate people and criticize each other for not following our rules. But you know what we do not do? Open up concentration camps in Florida swamps and abduct people in broad daylight. Get the Republican Party out of office, and then we can fix our own problems. Make sure every single House seat is contested in 2026. There is absolutely no excuse for there not to be a Democrat on the ballot in all 438 districts. I do not care if that district went 80% for Donald Trump. We get 0 votes when we have 0 candidates. Support primary challengers to the old politicians who cling to power but do not get anything done. Make sure your local elections from school board to state legislature are also contested. Today's aldermen become tomorrow's senators. Run for something is a great way to get started. Until then, do what you can to survive. Protect yourselves and your families. Take joy where you can. The nightmare happening across this nation will not impact the vast majority of you reading this anytime soon, so use that time to build up your energy reserves for when it does. I am thoroughly uninterested in false equivalence. Folks, that is a propaganda talking point meant to make you think that the party creating concentration camps and ending abortion nationwide is just as bad as the party that would like black people to be able to vote and gets mad when you do not use the right pronouns. It is not the same. I will be blocking 100% of people who reply with that nonsense. I am growing my block list at an alarming rate today. I did warn you. What elections? Do you really think we will have elections in 2026? Honestly, probably not. I legitimately think we have seen the end of our democracy. There are millions of people who, at one time without really knowing it, were at this point in their nation's history. The next section of their history discusses the election that marked the transition from one type of government to another, from democracy to dictatorship. Many of those people thought, there is no way that happens. And then it did. That is just as likely as anything else where we are today. But there are zero things anyone can do about that right now. We will not know our nation is over until it is over. The only choice you have is to continue as if it will not happen. There is literally nothing else to do. Story 22. The Supreme Court is allowing him to go unchecked, and the United States Congress has just given him a blank check. Now, what are the options? To fight or to sit back and watch? Story 23. About 50,000 people aged 25 to 55 will die every year from easily treated medical conditions due to loss of access to care. Most rural hospitals and clinics will close. Those that remain will be overcrowded, and wait times for care will increase significantly. More people will die from treatable medical conditions because care is too far away or the wait is too long. Meanwhile, billionaires receive tax breaks, and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement budget is now 3 times larger than the budget for the United States Marine Corps. The anonymous armed gangs of Navy SEAL Team 6 rejects will continue to terrorize everyone. The terrorization will escalate. Additionally, we are about to see people in America face starvation due to cuts in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Are we great yet? Story 24. The worst people in America will cheer. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, will die after the Medicaid cuts take effect, and many will mistakenly think that President Joe Biden is responsible. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement now has more funding than the entire Israeli Defense Forces budget, and we can expect them to begin trial runs of large-scale deportation raids. After that, it is only a matter of time before they revoke citizenship for speaking out against former President Donald Trump. Never forget that the Republican Party caused this. Never accept any apologies or excuses. There should be no moment of peace. Story 25. Start saving receipts and video clips now. When people criticize or blame others and say it is the fault of a particular group, have evidence. There is no accountability anymore. People do whatever they want, others forget, get mad, and then blame those who are trying to help. We need to have evidence on our side. We need to go on the attack. Story 26. Trump now has his own personal army of fascist thugs to round up anyone the regime deems undesirable. People of color, the disabled and sick, the poor, political dissidents, and throw them in concentration camps. Camps like the new Alligator Auschwitz will become death camps due to poor conditions by design, but supporters will cheer and buy merchandise for them anyway. The new Immigration and Customs Enforcement budget is larger than most countries' entire defense budgets, so you can expect many more agents and new camps opening in your neighborhood. The United States is dead. This is a fascist dictatorship now. Laura Loomer, advisor to Donald Trump, openly called for the genocide of 65 million Latinos. Nobody is coming to save us, unless the American people fight back. And not just by standing around outside with signs at permitted protests, we are all in danger. It is time for us to prepare. Organize with your local community. Build mutual aid networks. Those are how people survived during the Great Depression. Educate yourself and others on how to survive and make emergency plans. Arm yourselves before they take away your access to self-defense. Do weapons training and get in shape. If you think I am being alarmist, take a look at what the Nazi supporters of Trump are saying they want to do to us. Unless you are an extremely wealthy, white, healthy, cisgender, heterosexual, native-born male citizen who supports Trump and his fascist party, you are not safe. Period. Story 27. We are going to see crime increase significantly. The poor are already struggling, and when their only way to obtain food, shelter, and medical care is to either steal or risk imprisonment, they will do whatever is necessary to survive. Before anyone thinks they can work in their fields now that undocumented workers have been removed, think again. They will lack the nutrition, health, and ability to get there to do the work. We are going to see much more crime because more of the poor will have to choose between committing crimes to survive or dying. Story 28. I lost my insurance, but it does not matter because I will probably be placed in one of the detention centers being built for Latinos anyway. Story 29. It has not even been 1 year of Donald Trump's second term. At some point, Mexico will have an immigration problem with people fleeing the United States. Story 30. If you ever wondered what it was like when the National Socialist German Workers' Party took over Germany, that is the United States right now. The rich get richer, ethnic cleansing becomes more vile, the uninformed become less informed, and the weak suffer and die. Members of the Republican Party and those who did not vote either wanted this or did not care enough to do anything about it, and the 99% suffer. Story 31. Most of my family members are Donald Trump supporters. I poured my heart out to my mother and did not hold back. The bill, the sexual assaults, the torture of innocence, the lack of due process, the racism, the Bible selling, everything. I work in a children's hospital. She no longer supports Donald Trump. She truly was just ignorant. We have healed our relationship in many ways over the years, especially today. If there is any optimism to be had, it is that my mom believes me. She trusts me and loves me. So one for the team all. Story 32. Hope everyone who did not vote for Vice President Kamala Harris because of her stance on Israel is feeling great about themselves. Story 33. Now, propaganda begins to appear on all major news channels so that all negative consequences are blamed on someone else. Story 34. As with most things the Republican Party does, this will be seen as a victory, followed by the inevitable next big story to make us forget. In a few years, people will be complaining about lack of health insurance and will have completely forgotten the reason. By then, the Republican Party will blame the Democratic Party as usual, and we will further deepen into our inevitable dystopian future. Story 35. I do not know what to do. My mother tried to take her own life. She is disabled and has been feeling like a burden. I am very scared. Story 36. The rest of the world says thank you for showing us what late-stage capitalism looks like, and we will try to avoid that. Story 37. The conservative community is congratulating themselves excessively. It is absolutely disgusting. Beyond that, we witness a slow decline as our government realizes they can cut whatever they want now, and the repercussions will be felt by the next generation. Businesses operate with the mindset of, how can I make money this quarter and worry about the next quarter later? And we have decided to run our government like a business. There are stories of companies with record profits laying off staff to increase profits, only for the leadership to leave after a year or so with a golden parachute. We have enabled this mentality within our government, and that means people will suffer. So yes, enjoy the ride Generation X, Millennials, and Generation Z. I hope we can get ourselves out of the $3.3 trillion hole we have been thrown into. Story 38. This will last a few news cycles, and then there will be another attention-grabbing crisis. The spiral will continue. Story 39. Now America will be exploited by oligarchs more than ever before. In 50 years or so, there will be little left of the America that was once somewhat great. The irony is that this was done by a self-proclaimed businessman wearing a Make America Great Again hat. Carl Sagan predicted this long before the internet became popular. Science is more than a body of knowledge. It is a way of thinking. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the key manufacturing industries have shifted to other countries, when immense technological powers are in the hands of very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, with our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what is true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the very short sound bites now often 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, and especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Story 40. Many poor and even middle-class people will be homeless or die. Numerous hospitals in rural areas will close. The wealthy will then buy them and either do nothing with them or keep them open to keep people in perpetual debt. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement budget is now larger than half of the United States government agencies and even some military branches. Many more people will be sent to detention centers. Authorities will round up all political dissidents. It is possible that the midterm elections could be cancelled. Children will die. Elderly people will die. Disabled people will die. We are in a dire situation unless something extraordinary happens. Story 41. I know a lot of this does not take effect until after the midterm elections, but what I wish we could understand is that life will get worse for everyone, not just poor people and migrants. Every person will be negatively impacted by a healthcare system that loses a massive amount of money, that sees its emergency services become increasingly overwhelmed, by schools filled with hungry children, and by communities filled with scared, desperate, and deprived individuals. It is scary, infuriating, and heartbreaking. Story 42. I don't expect to be impacted directly yet. However, I am upset for my fellow citizens who are losing healthcare, for lower-income individuals who will be losing even more wealth to the rich, and for the increased abuse about to be inflicted on immigrants without due process. I care about others. Empathy is not weakness. What bothers me most are the outright blatant lies being told by the White House and the press secretary on social media, claiming no taxes on Social Security income. That is false. I read the bill. There is no such provision. I can only hope there will be a rebound effect in the midterm elections and the 2028 general election, but I cannot see even the people most impacted by this not voting against it again. With the current state of the Supreme Court of the United States, there may not be another general election. Story 43. If you know anyone who currently works for Immigration and Customs Enforcement or wants to apply for a job with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, remove them from your life entirely. If you know anyone who supports this bill's passage or still intends to support the people who voted for it, remove them as well. Story 44. Now you take to the streets and stay there until the government falls. Either that or you suffer under a totalitarian government for generations as the world burns around you. Move quickly because Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now a bigger agency than the United States Marine Corps, and the longer you wait, the more heavily armed your oppressors will be. Story 45. The ultra-wealthy, representing 0.01% of the population, once held about 30% of all U.S. wealth but are now approaching 50%. The bottom to middle-income group, comprising 60% of the U.S. population, holds 30% of the wealth. Yet, 60% of all votes are losing to 0.01%. Only about one-third of people are actually voting. Voting day should be a paid holiday or at least a half day off. The rich are getting richer, and people supporting Donald Trump is surprising. I speak as a conservative Republican, although my beliefs date back to the early 1980s. Story 46. It solves the real problem of wealthy individuals struggling with money issues and poor individuals having more money than they know what to do with. Story 47. All it took for Luigi to become a hero was his mother dying because of a health insurance company mistreating her. The government is about to remove 14 million people from healthcare coverage. That is a lot of potential Luigis. Story 48. The Founding Fathers had a plan for this. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evidences a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right and their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Story 49. Is it just me? Or is it really embarrassing when the House chants, United States of America, United States of America, after passing a vote? This is the second time I have seen it. regardless of political affiliation. If they chanted Sweden, Sweden, here they would become a laughingstock. However, I understand we are culturally quite different when it comes to nationalism. Story 50. Fight the opponents by clogging the streets and shutting down the economy. There is no other way. Story 51. Now artificial intelligence can kill us, starve us, or turn us into paperclips, and nobody will be able to do anything about it. Story 52. Now we gradually lose our money and rights over the next few years and accept it because it is too late to fix it. Story 53. Even if you are not on Medicaid, you feel this too. People being removed from Medicaid means more people will resort to emergency care instead of a primary care physician, which means the entire healthcare system becomes more overburdened, crowded, and expensive for those who pay for their own insurance as well. Story 54. I do not think anyone who supported Donald Trump should be allowed to feel carefree or safe. They should be openly and firmly confronted and shamed every time they leave their homes. I am done. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.